Hello, good evening and welcome to Biz First Review 360, your weekly roundup of the top business news and developments impacting the economy. I'm Nadim Majid. The single and Tamil New Year dawned amid a climate of political uncertainty. The 16 defectors from the Sri Lanka Freedom Party who voted for the no-confidence motion against the Prime Minister are now allegedly attempting to secure the position of General Secretary of the party. Meanwhile, a group of SLFPs also travelled to London to meet with the President, who is at the Commonwealth Heads of Government meeting, and discuss the current political situation. On the economic side, we've seen the rupee recover somewhat after falling to an all-time low this week against the dollar. Also, a 15% import tax was slapped on imported gold. Let's take a look at our top stories this week.
In the wake of world crude prices rising, Petroleum Development Minister Arjuna Ranatunga has said that the President and the Prime Minister will have to decide whether to increase fuel prices at the pump. Media reports citing the minister said that the Ministry of Finance is currently discussing pricing with the Petroleum Ministry, but that a final decision is to be made by the President, Prime Minister and the Cabinet. Ceylon Petroleum Corporation has not raised prices despite import costs going up. The central bank has repeatedly said that losses of state-owned enterprises such as the CPC and the CEB has weighed in on the island's balance of payments.
Reuters, citing dealers, said the Sri Lankan rupee ended higher yesterday, a day after it hit a record low, as sales by exporters outpaced dollar demand from importers. The rupee hit an all-time low of 156 rupees and 50 cents intraday and plunged even further to 156 rupees and 35 cents before recovering slightly to close at 156 rupees and 30 to 40 cents on Wednesday. According to the central bank, the rupee has weakened 2% against the US dollar up to April 5th this year. The rupee has also depreciated 4.8% against the euro, 6.4% against the sterling pound and 7.1% against the Japanese yen. The rupee fell 2.5% last year and 3.9% in 2016. Economists say the downward trend of the Sri Lankan rupee will continue for some time due to the shortage of foreign currency in the market.
Sri Lanka's balance of payments has been in crisis from about, say, 2010 onwards. Because we have a massive trade deficit which has not been supported by the inflow of remittances and other inflows to the country, and therefore Sri Lanka rupee had been on a downward path. The exports have not been performing well, even though there has been a slight improvement in year 2017, despite the fact that Sri Lanka had a massive import bill, creating a larger trade deficit in the balance of payments. So as a result, there is a shortage of foreign currency in the market, and this shortage should from time to time put pressure for Sri Lanka rupee to depreciate, and what is actually happening right now is a continuation of the same thing. The one reason is that in March, usually there is always a heavy inflow of foreign exchange to country by way of remittances by Sri Lankans working abroad. To enable their relatives in Sri Lanka to celebrate the New Year, and after the end of the New Year, this particular flow starts coming down. Now, what is right now happening is this foreign exchange inflow has come down, and at the same time, the import bills which the importers have placed before the New Year are now being paid by the banks. So, as a result, there is a shortage of foreign exchange, and this shortage has to put pressure on the Sri Lanka rupee to depreciate unless the central bank puts dollars from its own reserves. And central bank cannot do it in terms of the agreement which it has signed with the International Monetary Fund because the central bank has to not to sell in the market, but central bank has to buy dollars from the market whenever there is a surplus.
Reuters, citing dealers, said they expect the rupee to gradually weaken and face higher volatility this year due to huge debt repayments commitments by the government.
Jewelers in Colombo said prices of 24-carat gold has risen 62,000 rupees for an 8-gram sovereign after the government slapped a 15% tax on imported gold. Gold was trading around 53,000 to 54,000 rupees for 8 grams. Jewellery grade 22 carat gold was quoted around 59,000 to 60,000 rupees a sovereign, up from around 50,000 to 51,000 rupees before the tax hike.
Stay tuned to the Review 360. Coming up on the other side, we'll be joined by the CEO of the Shippers Academy, Colombo, Rohan Masakorala, who will be talking to us about economic prospects for Sri Lanka following Chogam.
Globalization. Recession. Fine income. GDP. GDP, recession, globalization. Catch all these programs and actions on TV1 Business Bureau.
Business Bureau, Irida, Sawasa Pahai Theatre.
Welcome back to the program. Rohan Masakorala, the CEO of the Shippers Academy Colombo, was at the Commonwealth Business Forum on the sidelines of the Commonwealth Heads of Government meeting in London in the UK this week. He joins us now in the studio to talk about some of Sri Lanka's economic prospects following Chogam. The Commonwealth Heads of Government meeting, Chogam 2018, concludes in London in the United Kingdom this weekend. One of the key forums, one of the key parallel forums that happens at Chogam is the Commonwealth Business Forum, which provides a good opportunity for Sri Lanka to gauge overseas investor confidence in the country, business sentiment. And we are joined this evening by Mr. Rohan Masakorala, CEO of the Shippers Academy Colombo, who attended the Commonwealth Business Forum representing the shipping, logistics and boat building sector. Mr. Masakorala, thank you very much for taking time off your very busy schedule and coming to talk to us about what happened at the Commonwealth Business Forum. So what happened at the Commonwealth Business Forum?
Well, I must say it was a pretty good business forum. Because I think there was special attention due to the fact that Brexit is happening, and this time it was United Kingdom, and there was global interest from all 53 countries, well attended, very well organized in terms of logistics, and networking was good for the business community, and it was a good opportunity for us who got a window to present ourselves at the forum at a special session on Sri Lanka. So I think it was overall a very good event this time.
Having been at the business forum, you would have met with a lot of foreign investors, the business community in the United Kingdom and other Commonwealth countries who were represented there. What was your what did you get from trying to gauge their sentiment regarding Sri Lanka?
Well, actually it was positive. They were quite, everybody was aware of Sri Lanka's in terms of Indian Ocean emerging economy, and especially South Asia being a hotspot for growth. A lot of people realize that the potential is there in Sri Lanka for investment, but only thing is we have not marketed ourselves very much. That's what I felt. When we talk to the people, some of the things they don't know about Sri Lanka, so obviously there is a lot of space for us to market ourselves. And as I said at the beginning, Brexit is a new opportunity because earlier always Commonwealth has been a forum quite informal, but now with this Brexit happening, we see a key interest from United Kingdom to have a better formal kind of a
to strengthen the
Commonwealth, and there's commitment from UK to financially support it in various areas, especially things like where I am involved, like skill development and capacity building. So that's the difference. I saw the keenness of the UK to network with these 53 countries, and Sri Lanka had that kind of a window of opportunity to get a better investment climate through UK and also rest of the countries.
Do you think that we made good use of that opportunity at this concluded Commonwealth Business Forum?
Personally, I think yes. I think the response we got for our session was quite good. The participants, and there were people who were going to fly in after what we presented specifically on the sector that I represent, like shipping, logistics and also the boat building industry. And I saw the interest from other sectors like the IT BPO sector that represented Sri Lanka, then the jewellery and fashion design, that kind of areas. So I think we made a good punch at the forum.
When you mentioned that you felt that Sri Lanka was not marketed well enough, in your meetings with investors at the business forum, or with prospective investors, with representatives of overseas business communities, did you sort of get the feeling that it was less to do with regulatory concerns and more simply not knowing what Sri Lanka has to offer?
The second one, the simply not knowing what Sri Lanka has to offer. I don't think they were concerned about the regulatory aspect at that moment, because they would want to know first of all what are the opportunities, and that I felt that we have not marketed to the business community, and there's a huge gap in that sense. Some people, I mean, completely not aware of what our capabilities are in terms of we talk of Indian Ocean logistics hub, but seems that they don't know anything about it.
So this is an issue of concern from a foreign policy angle as well, because I mean, we've had diplomatic relations with many countries around the world over a period of decades. Just over the last couple of years, we saw Sri Lanka celebrating diplomatic ties, 60 years of diplomatic ties, I think, with Australia. And we've had 60 plus 70 years, I think, almost of diplomatic ties with the United States, with the UK, with almost all of the other Commonwealth countries as well. We have missions that are in those countries. We have foreign embassies and high commissions that are in these countries. Do you feel that they have not been doing their job?
Yes.
If overseas investors are unaware of what Sri Lanka has to offer?
Yes, the answer is very clear. Yes, over the last 60 years we have not done a proper job at the embassies or the trade divisions, but now I see there are a lot of young people, new young faces in those
in the foreign service.
And in fact that's what one of the success was. This particular business forum, they had put a lot of effort, both from the foreign ministry and the Department of Commerce. I saw the young people were keen, they pushed us to come, they wanted us to do presentations, they were more involved. So there is obviously talent in the local system, young people who can make a change for Sri Lanka. In the past years, I fully agree that people have not done their job to promote our country. I hope this change will continue, and that the younger people in the government service will continue to do that, because they are the people who can get the message across.
With the Commonwealth Business Forum, there have been sort of sentiment expressed in the past that as far as international organizations for cooperation go, the Commonwealth is not a very effective medium. Given your experience over the past week at CHOGM and at the Commonwealth Business Forum in particular, do you think that this still holds true? Do you think that there ever was any truth to it, that the Commonwealth is not an effective international organization?
It is. It was, because it's an informal organization and there was no official protocol in terms of how it works. So it was kind of a club, I would say, to meet once in 2 years. But as I said at the beginning, things looks like slowly changing because of the environment around UK and also the protectionism that is coming from the United States, various global issues. I saw very much focus on trade, cooperation, capacity building, environment, oceans, which were serious topics taken up for discussion, and they themselves at the highest level at the Commonwealth agreed that it was not a formal organization and it needs to be more formalized. And also, of course, on the other hand, if you are in business, I think this forum gives you a lot of networking. So that is informal, that may not be reflecting in anywhere, but businesses do take connections and networking do increase business activities, which I saw firsthand to my own eyes happening to Sri Lankans. There were people who are interested in having deals with Sri Lankan companies. So that business networking does help. But as an international organization, yes, it is not formal, therefore its activities are not formal.
Following the Commonwealth, you're very happy with what transpired at the business forum, at least. Now, at the conclusion of this business forum, what do you think that we as a country and our government should be taking away from this, and what should we be doing now to make maximum use of the Commonwealth Business Forum?
The first thing I would recommend is to have a quick dialogue with United Kingdom. They have already allocated about $5 billion for the Commonwealth in the next few years to work with different countries, not for what Britain can get, but what its members can get out of United Kingdom. So we should start some quick dialogue with the United Kingdom government as a Commonwealth country to increase business activities with UK. And then of course the membership countries also, we have probably we'll have to identify specific countries where we could reach out for our bilateral arrangements in the Commonwealth. That's the way we should go, using the Commonwealth as a partnership.
When you say using the Commonwealth as a partnership, let's look at global sort of geopolitics as well. South Asia is a haven of Commonwealth countries, at least in our region. All of our neighbors are former Commonwealth countries, or former colonies of the British Empire. There is a lot of sentiment in this area that views the Commonwealth in a negative sort of light. There are people who see the Commonwealth as a colonial hangover, and that we should take that our foreign policy, and that we should have more independence, and should not be Commonwealth focused. What do you have to say about those thoughts?
Well, history is true and history cannot be changed. That's the fact. So some people can feel it that way, that it's kind of still the old club. But I don't personally believe that. I mean, the world has changed. Colonialism happened many years, centuries ago, and that was a thing that we cannot erase. But the truth has to be accepted. Now it's a matter of working with Commonwealth nations. For example, India is a Commonwealth nation, so we must strengthen our Commonwealth partnership in South Asia, because South Asia trade is, among South Asian countries, one of the lowest. Now, whether it's a Commonwealth country or not, one thing is we can use the Commonwealth platform to do more business. Other thing is, bilaterally all Commonwealth countries in South Asia must engage for more business. So I really think it as an opportunity rather than I mean, criticizing the past or what you cannot change. Wasting time on criticizing it is not my way of thinking. My way of thinking is forward thinking. How do we get going from here onwards and better ourselves through the Commonwealth? So that's the answer I can give you on that.
Mr. Masakorala, thank you very much again for taking time off. So there you go. Mr. Masakorala believes that the Commonwealth is still a very relevant organization and an important platform from which Sri Lanka can grow its business prospects. There's no point in being hung up on the past, because the past, as they say, is history. Look to the future. Forward thinking is what we need, according to Mr. Masakorala. Is Sri Lanka facing an energy crisis? More on this coming up soon after this break. Thank you very much, Mr. Kumarasinghe, for coming on the show this week. Let me start by asking you. Now, the Ceylon Electricity Board submitted a long-term generation plan, which features in the plans for new power plant projects, and basically prepares the mix of fossil fuels and renewables, etc. That's going to supply the country's energy demands over the long term. We're talking 20-30 years, I believe. Now, this plan was submitted to the PUCSL. The PUCSL held a series of consultations with the public and its stakeholders, and then finally an approved plan was given back to the CEB. But now we're hearing of the CEB, or a specific union within the CEB, challenging the plan approved by the regulator and embarking on union action in the form of a work to rule campaign under the theme No Cooperation with the Public Utilities Commission. What's going on?
Actually, I want to explain the process of approving the long-term generation expansion plan. There's legal background to it. So the Commission can only approve the least cost long-term generation expansion plan. So it should be least cost, number one. Number two, Commission has to consult the stakeholders who are affected by Commission decisions under the Act. So Commission has consulted all the stakeholders who will be affected by the decision taken by the Commission. So Commission has approved this long-term generation expansion plan considering the least cost as well as the views of the stakeholders. And as per the Sri Lanka Electricity Act, that would be the approved long-term generation expansion plan. And it is the duty of the transmission license holder, which is Ceylon Electricity Board, to implement the plan.
There is a problem that immediately comes to mind here. Now, the series of consultations that you have had is basically it's with the public, the stakeholders, the primary stakeholders when it comes to the energy demand and the supply of the country is the public, the citizens of Sri Lanka. Isn't this why this is not a sort of a labor dispute? Why are we seeing the demands of a union, one union, trumping the views of the public, government policy, and the orders of the regulator?
So there's nothing has happened. So what we are saying is that the generation plan is approved and we need power for the next 20 years. The demand is growing 5 to 6% every year, so we have to add the plants in the plan quickly according to the plan. The moment you delay anything, it will end up either we have to supply power through expensive sources like emergency power,
private sector power projects,
or we have to we may not be able to supply power. So the primary thing here is to implement the plan and supply power at the least cost. So it will help the economy, the people, the country as a whole to move forward.
Now, one of the major arguments that has been put forward by opponents to the PUCSL approved long-term generation plan is that there isn't enough space given for coal power plants, and that there's a need for coal to sort of cover the base load that is required to the base load of supply that is required to ensure that there is a uninterrupted power supply for the entire country. Is there any merit to this argument?
Actually, as I said, to provide uninterrupted power supply, you need power plants. Number two, to be least cost, you need the least cost power plants. So the generation plan is prepared as the least cost generation expansion plan and approved. And also there's one other very important element, that is the Commission should take into account the government policy also in determining the generation mix, the source mix. So at the time of approval, the policy was also no coal. So that's why it's according to the policy, it is the least cost, and it has gone through a comprehensive consultation process. So I think it's very clear plan.
We've seen allegations. Now, there were a lot of allegations of misappropriation and misconduct in the procurement of coal for the Norachole power plant. Now, we also have heard allegations of misappropriation or misconduct, improper tender procedures, etc., with the Kerolapitiya LNG plant, or a combined cycle power plant. What is the situation now with LNG plants? Have these allegations been responded to?
Actually, we are not involved in the procurement process. Commission stops at the approval stage of the generation plan, and the procurement of generation plants and commissioning, so on and so forth, is with the Ceylon Electricity Board. And as far as I am aware, the first natural gas plant is almost in the verge of award, and there are a few more tenders came up on solar.
See, this is very interesting. Now you say the regulatory field or your sphere of what you can regulate by the PUCSL is already very limited in scope. You said it's basically the approvals process. You approve the long-term generation expansion plan, and after that it's the CB's job to implement it, and they're in charge of the procurement and etc., etc. Still, even with such limited regulation and oversight, you're facing a lot of opposition to what little regulation there is. Is this a normal situation?
No, actually regulatory mechanisms, regulations, regulatory institutions are a well-developed concept, and regulators are there in all the countries, and the electricity sector is regulated everywhere. So does telecom and other sectors. We have Telecom Regulatory Commission, Public Utilities Commission, then we have
the Securities and
Exchange Commission, Central Bank, so many regulators. So everybody performs the regulatory function. So regulated entities should act according to the legal requirements and the regulatory decisions.
Do you feel that your scope is limited? Do you think that the Public Utilities Commission requires more regulatory powers, or do you feel that the current framework is sufficient?
I feel the current framework is sufficient. Now what I am saying is that the implementation is done by the regulated entity or the business entity. So that part is not the regulator's job. Regulator's job is to set the rules, set the standards, set the regulations, the procedures, and ensure the transparency for the customers as well as the fairness, to ensure the fairness, because you have consumers, you have a utility monopoly, so there should be some party to ensure fairness in this trade. So that's the role the Public Utilities Commission or any other regulator plays. So we are very.
So this is a very interesting point that you bring up, because this specific engineers union that we're talking about within the CEB that is embarking on this work to rule campaign has said that they will not be responsible for any disruptions to power supply during their work to rule campaign. Now, one could argue that this is very unfair by the consumers, the public of Sri Lanka. What power, if any, does anyone, or the PUCSL or anyone else for that matter, have to ensure that people are held responsible, that people working for the government, taking salaries from the government, are doing their job?
No, actually Ceylon Electricity Board is responsible, because under the license, they are operating under the license, transmission licensee is responsible for continuous power supply. So the Ceylon Electricity Board is responsible for maintaining a continuous power supply.
If they don't, what action can be taken?
Then the Act provides that we can issue, the regulator can issue the orders to implement that, and failing which the next option under the Act is to go to the courts.
Thank you very much for coming on Biz First in Focus. It's been a pleasure having you on the program. You can catch the full interview with Damitha Kumarasinghe, Director General of the Public Utilities Commission of Sri Lanka, on Biz First in Focus, Tuesday at 9:30 p.m. That's a wrap of the Review 360 for this week. Don't forget to look us up on Facebook. You'll find us at Biz First Review 360. I'm Nadim Majid. I'll see you again, same time, same place next week. Until then, good night and good luck.